What if I told you that turning 70 doesn't mean the end? What if I said that at 78, you could still be the kind of person who makes jaws drop and hearts race? You might laugh, roll your eyes, or think, yeah, right, maybe a Hollywood movie. But stick with me, because today you're going to meet Eleanor. She's not a superhero, not a celebrity, just a woman from a sleepy little town in America who's about to turn everything you think about aging upside down. So let's dive in because this isn't just a story. It's a wake-up call. Eleanor Thompson lives in Willow Creek, a quaint dot on the map somewhere in the Midwest, where the biggest news is usually who won the pie contest at the county fair. At 78, she's got silver hair that catches the sunlight like a halo, and eyes that still sparkle with a fire most people lose by 40. She used to be a high school English teacher, 30 years of molding young minds, reciting Shakespeare, and grading essays with a red pen that danced across the page. Back then, she was a force of nature, the kind of woman who could hush a rowdy classroom with a single raised eyebrow. But now, the world sees her differently. It's a Tuesday morning, crisp and cool, the kind where the air smells like fallen leaves and coffee brewing on someone's porch. Eleanor shuffles into the local grocery store, her canvas tote bag slung over one shoulder. She's there for flour. She's got a wild idea to bake cinnamon rolls from scratch, just because she woke up craving them. As she reaches for a bag on the middle shelf, a young cashier, barely 20, rushes over. "Careful, ma'am," he says, his voice dripping with concern. "You don't want to fall. Let me get that for you. You're, getting up there, you know." He flashes a smile, the kind you give a fragile old lady who might break if the wind blows too hard. Eleanor freezes, her hand hovering mid-air. "Getting up there?" The words hit her like a slap. She forces a tight smile, nods, and lets him grab the flower, but inside, something twists. She's not some porcelain doll about to shatter. She's Eleanor Thompson, the woman who once carried a stack of textbooks taller than her shortest student without breaking a sweat. But as she shuffles to the checkout, she catches her reflection in the glass door, stooped shoulders, a few more wrinkles than she remembers. Is that what they see? Is that all she is now? The drive home is quiet, just the hum of her old Toyota and the rustle of grocery bags in the back. She pulls into her driveway, a modest house with peeling blue paint and a garden she still tends herself. "Thank you very much." Inside, she sets the flower on the counter and sinks into her favorite armchair, the one with the faded floral pattern her late husband, Tom, picked out decades ago. She stares at a framed photo on the mantel. A younger Eleanor, standing in front of her classroom, arms crossed, grinning like she owned the world. Her students are laughing in the background, mid-lesson, midlife. Where did that woman go? Her son, Mark, calls later that afternoon. He's 45, a busy accountant with 2 kids and a mortgage, living an hour away in the city. "Hey, Mom," he says, his voice warm but distracted. "Just checking in. You doing okay? You know, you don't have to push yourself so hard anymore. Maybe it's time to take an easy rest. Enjoy the grandkids when they visit. You've earned it. Earned it." Like her life's work was a race, she's finally finished. And now she's supposed to sit on the sidelines with a blanket over her knees. She tells him she's fine, hangs up, and sits there, the silence pressing in. It's not that Mark's wrong to care. He's a good son, always has been. But rest feels like a polite way of saying give up. And Eleanor's not ready for that. She's not ready to be the old lady who fades into the background, the one people pat on the head and whisper about in past tense. She's still here, damn it's still breathing, still thinking, still dreaming. But the world doesn't see it. To them, 78 means slow steps, shaky hands, and a mind that's starting to slip. To them, she's a relic, a shadow of who she used to be. That night, she can't sleep. She lies in bed, the moonlight spilling through the curtains, painting silver streaks across the quilt Tom made her years ago. Her mind churns. She thinks about the cashier, about Mark, about the neighbor who offered to mow her lawn last week, because it's too much for you now, Eleanor. Too much? She'd mowed that lawn herself 2 days earlier. the grass clippings still stuck to her sneakers in the garage. She thinks about the life she's lived, the lessons taught, the books read, the late nights planning field trips for kids who'd never left Willow Creek. Was it all just a prelude to this? To being invisible? Then something shifts. She sits up, her heart pounding not from fear, but from a spark she hasn't felt in years. If they think she's done, they're wrong. If they think 78 is the end, they haven't seen anything yet. She swings her legs over the side of the bed, her bare feet hitting the cold hardwood floor. She pads to the kitchen, flips on the light, and pulls out that bag of flour. Cinnamon rolls at midnight? Why the hell not? As she measures the sugar, her hand steady, she mutters to herself, if I fall, I'll get up faster than those kids on their fancy bikes out there. A small laugh escapes her lips, sharp and defiant. This isn't about proving them wrong, not yet. It's about proving something to herself. Because deep down, Eleanor knows she's still got it. She's not just some old lady waiting for the clock to run out. She's a rare gem, polished by time, not dulled by it. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, she's going to start showing the world what 78 can really look like. She needs the dough, her fingers strong and sure, the rhythm of it waking up parts of her she'd almost forgotten. The kitchen fills with the warm scent of yeast and cinnamon. And for the first time in months, she feels alive, really alive. The cashier's words echo in her head, but now they're fuel, not weight. Getting up there? She thinks, smirking, oh, kid, you have no idea how high I can climb. And that's where we begin with a woman the world has written off, standing in her kitchen at midnight, hands covered in flour, ready to rewrite the story they've handed her. What's she going to do next? How's she going to shake up Willow Creek? And maybe even you. Stick around, because Eleanor's just getting started. She's got 8 tricks up her sleeve, 8 things that'll make you rethink everything you know about aging. 8 reasons she's not just surviving, she's shining. So what do you think? Is 70 or 80 the end? Or could it be a beginning? Have you ever felt counted out, only to prove you've still got fire left? Eleanor's about to show us what happens when you refuse to fade. And trust me, you're not going to miss a single second of this. So, Eleanor's got flour on her hands and a spark in her soul. That midnight cinnamon roll session wasn't just a late night whim, it was a declaration. The world might think 78 means slowing down, but Eleanor, she's about to speed up. You ready to see what this woman can do? Because if you thought she was just some sweet old lady baking treats, buckle up. Eleanor's got a list of tricks that'll make you question every stereotype you've ever had about aging. Let's dive into the first 4, and trust me, they're going to blow your mind. The sun's barely up in Willow Creek, painting the sky a soft pink when Eleanor laces up her sneakers. Not the dainty kind you'd expect from a grandma, no. These are bright blue running shoes, scuffed from use, the kind a marathoner might wear. She steps outside, stretches her legs, and takes off. 2 miles around the park, her silver hair bouncing with every stride, her breath puffing out in steady bursts. That's number 1. She runs. Not shuffles, not walks, runs. The neighbors peek through their curtains, eyebrows raised. Is that Eleanor Thompson? They whisper. At her age? She catches their stares and flashes a grin, the kind that says, yeah, it's me. Keep watching. She's been doing this for years, ever since her doctor told her a decade ago that movement keeps the heart young. Science backs her up. Studies from the American Heart Association say regular exercise can add years to your life, and Eleanor's living proof. Her legs aren't as fast as they were at 50, sure, but they're strong, steady, and they carry her past the playground where kids half her age are still rubbing sleep from their eyes. By the time she loops back home, her cheeks are flushed, her phone buzzing with 3,000 steps already logged on her fitness app. That's right, she's not too old for tech either. Take that, stereotypes. Back inside, she pours a glass of water and settles at the kitchen table. The newspaper's waiting, crisp and fresh, but she doesn't flip to the obituaries like some might expect. No, she goes straight for the crossword the New York Times won, the kind that makes college grads sweat. Number 2, she solves it. Not just any puzzle, but the hardest one of the week in 20 minutes flat. Her pen dances across the grid, filling in quixotic and ephemeral without a hitch. She's got a mind like a steel trap, sharpened by decades of teaching and a refusal to let it rust. Research from Harvard says puzzles keep your brain sharp. Eleanor doesn't need the study to know it's true. She feels it every time she cracks a clue, that rush of victory lighting up her eyes. But she's not done. Later that afternoon, a drip, drip, drip echoes from the bathroom. The sink's leaking again. Mark would say, "Call a plumber, Mom," but Eleanor's not about to pick up the phone. She grabs her toolbox, yes, her toolbox, a battered red thing she's had since Tom was alive, and gets to work. Number 3, she fixes it herself. On her knees, wrench in hand, she tightens the pipe, her fingers nimble despite the years. Water stops dripping, and she stands up, brushing dust off her jeans with a satisfied nod. The guy at the hardware store had smirked when she bought that wrench last year. "Need help with that, ma'am?" But she just smiled and said, "Only if you need help figuring out your own stock." Now, the sink's silent, and she's the one smirking. By evening, the house smells like cinnamon again, not from last night's rolls, but something new. Her grandson, Jake, 10 years old and all elbows and energy, bounds through the door. "Grandma, can we bake?" he asks, and Eleanor's already pulling out the mixing bowls. Number 4, she teaches him. Not just any recipe, but her great-grandmother's apple pie, the kind with a crust so flaky it melts in your mouth. She shows Jake how to roll the dough, her hands guiding his, flour dusting their aprons. "Too much pressure, and it'll toughen up," she says, her voice soft but firm, like she's back in a classroom. Jake giggles as a puff of flour hits his nose, and Eleanor laughs, a big, bright sound that fills the room. Studies say passing down skills boosts mental resilience in older adults. Eleanor doesn't need a study for that. Either it's in the way Jake beams when the pie comes out golden and perfect. For things running, solving crosswords, fixing leaks, teaching Jake, and she's just getting warmed up. But here's the kicker. Not everyone's cheering her on. The neighbors whisper. The cashier from yesterday sees her jogging and mutters, "She's going to hurt herself one of these days." Even Mark, when he hears about the sink, sighs over the phone, "Mom, why don't you let someone else handle that?" They don't get it. To them, she's a fragile old lady pushing her luck. To her, she's Eleanor Thompson, and she's not here to sit still. Now, let's pause for a second. If you're watching this and your jaw's dropped, even a little maybe, because Eleanor's outrunning your morning walk or outsmarting your last puzzle attempt, I want to hear from you. Drop a 2 in the comments right now. Seriously, do it. And while you're at it, tell me, what do you think she's got up her sleeve next? Could you keep up with her? Hit that comment section. I'm reading every single one. And I bet Eleanor would love to know what you're guessing. Because here's the thing. Eleanor's not doing this to show off. She's doing it because she refuses to let age define her. Society says 78 means rocking chairs and bingo nights, but she's rewriting the script. And those whispers, those doubts, they're just noise. She tunes them out, focusing on the rhythm of her runs, the scratch of her pen, the clank of her wrench, the laughter in her kitchen. Each one's a brick in the wall. She's building a wall that says, "I'm still here, and I'm still me." The sun sets over Willow Creek, painting the sky orange and gold, and Eleanor sits on her porch with a slice of that apple pie. Jake's inside, bragging to his mom over FaceTime about Grandma's secret recipe. Eleanor takes a bite, the sweetness bursting on her tongue, and thinks about tomorrow. 4 down, 4 to go. She's got more to show, not just to the neighbors, not just to Mark, but to herself. And maybe, just maybe to you. What's next? Could she dance circles around the doubters? She's not slowing down, not even close. Because Eleanor's not just living, she's shining, brighter with every step, every solved clue, every fixed pipe, every shared laugh. And if you think this is impressive, wait until you see what she pulls off next. Age is just a number, and Eleanor's turning it into a battle cry. Eleanor's already shown us 4 things that make her a force of nature, running miles, cracking crosswords, fixing leaks, and teaching her grandson to bake like a pro. But if you think she's peaked, think again. This woman's got 4 more aces up her sleeve, and they're about to take her and us into the heart of a storm that'll test everything she's made of. Because being a rare gem isn't just about what you can do, it's about what you do when the world tries to dim your light. Let's see how Eleanor shines brighter than ever. It's a Wednesday afternoon in Willow Creek, and Eleanor's at the community center, a squat brick building where retirees usually play bingo or knit scarves. But not her. She signed up for a salsa dancing class number 5 on her list. The room's buzzing with chatter as she walks in, her sneakers swapped for a pair of low heels she dug out of the closet. The instructor, a wiry guy named Carlos, raises an eyebrow. "You sure about this, ma'am?" he asks, half smiling. Eleanor just nods, her lips curling into that defiant grin we know so well. The music starts a pulsing Latin beat, and she's off, hips swaying, feet gliding across the floor. She's not perfect, not by a long shot, but she's fluid, alive, her silver hair swinging as she spins. Sweat beads on her forehead, and her heart pounds in time with the rhythm. The younger dancers, some in their 40s, some 50s, gape. "She's 78?" One whispers. "Damn right she is." Science says dancing boosts memory and coordination. Studies from the National Institute on Aging back that up, and Eleanor's a living testament. She stumbles once, laughs it off, and keeps going, her movements growing bolder with every step. By the end of the hour, she's flushed and breathless, but her eyes are electric. Carlos claps her on the shoulder. "You got fire, Eleanor." She wipes her brow and thinks, "You have no idea." Next up, number 6, her memory. The class isn't just about dancing, it's about people. 20 new faces, all with names and stories. There's Linda, who loves gardening Mike, the retired firefighter Sarah, who's obsessed with her poodle. Eleanor doesn't just nod and forget she remembers. The next week, she greets them all by name, tossing in details like, "Linda, how's that rose bush coming?" Or "Mike, still missing the fire truck?" They blink, stunned. "How do you do that?" Sarah asks. Eleanor shrugs. "I taught kids for 30 years. You don't forget a name when it matters." But it's more than that. Her mind's a vault, and she keeps it locked tight with every new face she meets. Then comes number 7, chess. Not the dusty board game in the corner of her attic, but online, on her laptop. She's been teaching herself for months, watching YouTube tutorials, and practicing against strangers across the world. One night, she squares off against Chess King 99, a cocky 30-year-old from Chicago who types, "Good luck, Grandma," before the match. Eleanor's fingers hover over the keys, her brow furrowing as she moves her knight. 40 minutes later, it's checkmate her win. Chess King 99 logs off without a word, and she leans back, a slow smile spreading across her face. The American Psychological Association says learning new skills keeps your brain young. Eleanor's not just keeping it young, she's making a weapon. And number 8, writing. Not grocery lists or thank you notes, but poetry. She sits at her kitchen table one evening, the house quiet except for the tick of the clock, and picks up a pen. The words flow raw, jagged, beautiful, about age, about time, about the fire that still burns in her chest. She titles it Silver Flame and posts it to a local poetry group online. Comments flood in. "This hit me hard. Who wrote this?" She doesn't reply, just sits there, pen trembling in her hand, feeling the weight of every line. It's not just a poem, it's her soul on paper. 8 things running: crosswords, repairs, teaching, dancing, remembering, chess, poetry, and Eleanor's a walking miracle. But miracles don't come without storms. That night, after salsa class, she feels a sharp twinge in her chest as she climbs the stairs. She pauses, hand gripping the railing, breath catching. It's gone in a moment, but it lingers in her mind. The next day, it happens again, stronger after a jog. She brushes it off, probably just overdid it, but when Mark visits that weekend, he notices her wince. "Mom, what's wrong?" he asks, voice tight. She waves him off. "Nothing, just a little ache." He doesn't buy it. Sunday morning, he's back with a plan. I've been thinking, he says over coffee, his tone gentle but firm. Maybe it's time to look at a care home, somewhere you can be safe, looked after. I worry about you running, dancing, all this stuff. What if you hurt yourself? Eleanor's cup freezes halfway to her lips. A care home. The words sink like stones. She sees it in his eyes. He's not doubting her strength. He's scared. But to her, it's a cage. I'm fine, Mark, she says, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. I'm not ready for that. He sighs, runs a hand through his hair. I just want you to be okay, Mom. That night, alone again, the twinge returns sharper, insistent. She sits on the edge of her bed, pressing a hand to her ribs, her breath shallow. Fear creeps in cold and heavy. Is this it? The moment her body betrays her? She thinks of the salsa, the chess wins, the poem still buzzing online. She thinks of Mark's worried face. For the first time in years, doubt gnaws at her. Maybe they're right. Maybe 78 is too old to keep pushing. Maybe she's been fooling herself. But then she stands, slow and deliberate, and walks to the mirror. She stares at the woman looking back wrinkled. Yes, but fierce. Her chest aches, but her heart's still beating, still fighting. No, she whispers. Not yet. She won't go to a doctor not out of stubbornness, but because she needs to know for herself. She grabs her phone, opens that fitness app, and checks her stats, pulse, steps, all steady. She researches chest pain, could be muscle strain, not a death sentence. She decides, one more day, one more chance to prove it's not over. The storm's here, swirling around her doubt from Mark, whispers from neighbors, a body that's starting to creak. But Eleanor's not bowing out. She's danced through skepticism, outsmarted opponents, poured her heart onto the page. She's a rare gem, and gems don't crack that easy. What you gonna do next? Give up or fight harder? Could you face a scare like that and keep going? Because Eleanor's about to show us what happens when the fire refuses to fade, even when the wind howls loudest. This isn't the end, it's the edge. She's teetering, but she's not falling. Not yet. And if you're wondering how she pulls through, how she turns this storm into a sunrise, well, you're about to find out. 8 things down, and Eleanor's still standing. What they're going to take to keep her shining. Let's see. Eleanor's standing at the edge, chest aching, doubt creeping, her son's worried voice echoing in her ears. 8 incredible things she's done running. Solving crosswords, fixing pipes, teaching, dancing, remembering, winning at chess, writing poetry, and yet here she is facing a storm that could snuff out her fire. But if you think this is where she fades, you don't know Eleanor Thompson. This isn't the end of her story. It's the moment she turns the page and writes her brightest chapter yet. Let's see how a rare gem polishes itself in the roughest winds. The morning after that sharp chest pain, Eleanor wakes with a plan not to surrender, but to fight smarter. She's not reckless, she's resolute. She books a doctor's appointment not because Mark begged her to, but because she wants answers on her terms. The clinic's a 20-minute drive, and she takes the wheel herself, her hands steady on the old Toyota's steering column. The doctor, a kind-eyed woman named Dr. Patel, listens as Eleanor recounts the twinges, the salsa, the runs. You've been busy, Dr. Patel says, half amused, half impressed. A quick exam, an ECG, and the verdict comes, no heart attack. No ticking time bomb, just a strained muscle from overdoing it on the dance floor. Take it easy for a few days, Dr. Patel advises, but keep moving. You're in better shape than most 50-year-olds I see. Relief floods Eleanor, but it's more than that, it's vindication. She's not breaking, she's bending, adapting, still glowing. She drives home, windows down, the spring air whipping through her silver hair. The World Health Organization says people over 60 can thrive with regular activity and purpose. Eleanor's not just thriving. She's rewriting the rulebook. That twinge? A bump, not a barricade. And she's not done proving it. Back in Willow Creek, she hatches an idea, a wild, bold one. If the world thinks 78 means retreat, she'll show them it means resurgence. She calls it Eleanor's Day, a mini rebellion in the park, and spreads the word. Neighbors, family, even Carlos from salsa class get an invite. Come see what an old lady can do, she tells them, her voice brimming with mischief. Mark's skeptical when she calls him. Mom, are you sure? After the chess thing? She laughs. I'm sure. Bring the kids. You'll see. Saturday dawns bright and clear, the park buzzing with a small crowd, maybe 30 people, from curious neighbors to Jake bouncing with excitement. Eleanor's there in her blue sneakers, a lightweight jacket, and that grin that could light up a storm. She starts with a run 2 miles around the park, slower than usual to ease her chest, but steady, her breath visible in the cool air. People clap as she loops back, a few jaws dropping. That's Eleanor? Someone mutters. At 78? She waves, sweat glistening on her brow, and thinks, just wait. Next, she pulls out a portable speaker and cues up that salsa beat. Carlos steps up, grinning, and they dance right there on the grass, her heels swap for sneakers, but her hips still swaying like she's 20. The crowd cheers, Jake whooping loudest, and Mark's eyes widen. She spins, stumbles once, catches herself, and keeps going, her laughter ringing out over the music. The ache in her chest is faint, manageable. She's listening to her body, not defying it. When the song ends, she's breathless but beaming, and Carlos bows to her like she's the star of the show. She is. Then, the poetry. She pulls a folded paper from her pocket, steps to the center of the crowd, and reads Silver Flame. Her voice strong, steady carries over the rustling leaves. I am not the ash of years gone by, but the ember that still dares to rise. Silence falls, heavy and reverent, then applause erupts. A neighbor wipes a tear. Jake whispers, "That's my grandma." Even Mark, standing with his arms crossed, softens, his lips twitching into a reluctant smile. She's not just reciting, she's reclaiming. The finale? Connection. She walks through the crowd, greeting every single person by name. Linda with the roses, like the firefighter, Sarah, and her poodle, all 30 of them, flawlessly. How does she do that? Someone asks. Eleanor overhears and shrugs. You listen, you remember. It's not hard when you care. It's her sixth trick in action, and it's magic, pure human magic. The day ends with pie. Jake's apple pie, baked that morning under her watchful eye. She cuts slices, hands them out, and sits on a bench as the sun dips low, painting the sky gold. The crowd thins, but the energy lingers. Neighbors who once whispered now slap her back, saying, "You're something else, Eleanor." Carlos promises her a permanent spot in salsa class. Jake hugs her tight, flowers still smudged on his cheek from earlier. And Mark? He sits beside her, quiet for a long moment, then says, "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't get it. You're incredible." She looks at him, her son, the boy she raised, now a man learning to see her anew. 78's not a finish line. Mark, she says softly. It's a comma, a pause before the next sentence. I'm still writing mine. He nods, eyes glistening, and pulls her into a hug, the kind that says more than words ever could. As the last light fades, Eleanor stands in the park, alone now, the applause still echoing in her ears. The breeze lifts her hair, and she closes her eyes, feeling every beat of her heart, every ache in her bones, every spark in her soul. 8 things running, crosswords, repairs, teaching, dancing, memory, chess, poetry, and they're not just feats. They're her defiance, her joy, her proof that age doesn't dim a gem, it sharpens it. She's not invincible, she's human, flawed, fragile in moments, but she's alive, fiercely, fully alive. So what's the takeaway? Eleanor's not a superhero or a fluke, she's a rare gem, because she chooses to be. The who says it, the science backs it. Movement, learning, connection keep us young. But Eleanor adds the secret sauce: guts. She faced the storm, pain, doubt, fear, and turned it into a sunrise. Could you do that? Could you stare down 70 or 80 and say, "I'm not done yet"? Because that's what she's asking us, without ever saying it out loud. Picture her now standing there, silver hair catching the dusk, a quiet smile on her face. She's not just surviving, she's shining. And if she can do it, if she can run, dance, write, and love with every fiber of her being, what's stopping you? Age is just a number, a comma, not a period. Eleanor's proven it, one breathtaking step at a time. So, tell me, what's your comma? What's the next sentence in your story? Drop it in the comments. I want to hear how Eleanor's fire lights yours. Share this if it hit you. Subscribe if you're inspired, because this isn't just her story, it's ours. 8 things, one woman, and a truth we can't ignore. Rare gems don't fade. They blaze.